Everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 633. Today we're going to talk about the Funkoverse strategy game. Now this box here includes Batman, Batgirl, the Joker, and Harley Quinn, but you can get other boxes, and I believe right now we've got here the Golden Girls box, and then also the Harry Potter box, which I'll show you here in a second. So what this game is kind of a miniature skirmish game with an anachronistic sort of melding of all these different themes and IPs. So you've got Harry Potter, you've got Batman, you've got Golden Girls. I think coming out right about now or soon is a Rick and Morty two-figure box set. There's an upcoming expansion for the Batman one. There's another expansion coming for the Harry Potter one, and I think there's some other IPs that I'm forgetting that they're coming out with later. But what you do is you take these figures and you put them in an environment sort of indicative of the particular IP. So you might be in Gotham City, you might be in the Golden Girls condominium, you might be at Hogwarts, that kind of thing. And you play a variety of different game modes, like capture the flag or area control and that kind of stuff. So the game plays 2 to 4 players, although you could probably theoretically play it with 6, no problem. But let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at how the game works, and I'll come back and tell you what I think. Okay, here you can see I've kind of set up a random game kind of in progress, if you will. A couple of things to note here. Of course, you've got your different Funko characters, which you can see here. This is Lord Voldemort. Now, I don't have any other Funkos around, but these are actually a little bit smaller than the standard Funkos that you can see. And the other difference is here, like you can see, I've given Voldemort here this little dagger, so that's pretty neat. So I can give him this dagger here, and you can see here I've got a little card for Voldemort showing his different special abilities and things, as well this dagger card. So you can see here that you could actually, if you really wanted, I could give this dagger here to Blanche from the Golden Girls, because she's got a little spot here to hold things. The rules actually kind of encourage that, to just sort of mix and match these IPs and things like that. But if you were to get, let's say, the Harry Potter box and that alone, it comes with these 4 figures. Again, like I showed you, we have Voldemort there, and we also have Harry. And you forgive me if I screw up any of this stuff with the Harry Potter stuff. I've actually only seen 1 movie of his. So there's Harry, and then there's these 2 gals here. I don't know who they are. So this is the curly-haired gal. She's nice. And then we have the other one here, which is a friend. And you can see she's got a little vial here. This is like a little potion that she can throw. So you could, mix and match these teams. The game comes with different colored bases, so you can attach. Let's just take that off. You can see there's a dark base there. Put that on the hole there. So right now I've got Voldemort on the same team as Harry, which I believe is not necessarily in keeping with the story, but I've also got these light colored bases here, so I could swap these out and put folks on different teams if I wish. And then as well, once you start to mix the different IPs together, you use the different bases. So we've got Blanche here on the white base, and then over here we've got Rose, and she's on the dark base here, and she's carrying this giant cheesecake there, which I could give to Voldemort if I really wanted, which would be fun. So once you figure out which characters you want to play with, you're going to figure out which kind of game mode you want to play. And from what I've seen in all the sets, you have the same 4 game modes, but you have different sort of maps and obstacles and things based on which environment and which board you choose. So here I've set up like a capture the flag idea. It shows you which side the team start on. So the white based team will start there with a dark based team here. You'll lay out some scoring areas and things like that, but you might have here some control points, some control areas, some different point scores here. You might start off on this side, and then these boards are actually double-sided here. So if I were to flip this board over here, you can see you've got kind of more of an outdoor ruined area here, and you've got some different starting areas and objectives there. So the games are going to sort of entail, objective control, area control, or like just straight up kind of like knocking out your opponent. And there's some extra rules and things here. Now the rule book, it does do a good job of walking you through kind of playing just a basic game, throwing down like 2 characters, just kind of going head to head, kind of working through the mechanics, and then kind of slowly introducing these new concepts here from some of these more kind of advanced gameplays where you're worried about just other things other than smashing your opponent in the head or challenging them. Like I said, when you take your character, you're going to take a matching card with them, and you can play this a number of different ways. So the Harry Potter game comes with 4 characters or 4 models. The Golden Girl game just comes with the 2 models. But you can also get these extra sort of tokens for like a 3rd character, and these are sort of basic characters. There's Aurora here, and then there is also this other character here, Death Eater, which I don't know what those are, but these are other characters that you can control, but they don't do anything special. Like you can see all the special abilities on this card. And then when you knock these characters down, you just flip them over here to their knockdown side, whereas you knock over another character, you're just going to lay them on their side like that to show that they're knocked down. And the cool thing about these is these cards here that match that sort of neutral-ish character. There's like Death Eater here. This also acts as a little bit of a play aid because these are all the basic actions that you can do with all of the characters, including the basic ones and the ones that have a figure. So it just acts as a little bit of a play aid as well. And then in addition, you have the extra cool abilities from these folks here. Now, one interesting thing to note, as you sort of mix and match these characters, you can see these little dots here. So we've got one gray and a yellow and one blue and a yellow there. So this particular pool will start with 2 yellow tokens and then a gray and a blue, kind of mixing those together. So each of these characters is going to have different sort of special abilities that they can do. You can see this has gray icons next to them there and a yellow there, and this one has 2 yellow abilities and a blue one there. So it's nice to bring Voldemort with Harry because he adds another yellow token to the mix, which Harry then can use, because this becomes a collective pool of tokens which you need to spend to activate these special abilities there. So all of these here with this sort of colored icon that has a cost there, like 4, 2, and 1, those are kind of actions that you can do on your turn. And then down here we've got the special ability here that says, you know, while Harry is knocked down and defends against a challenge, change 1 sort of hit to a defense after his defense roll is made. And this shows you the number of defense dice that they will actually roll. And that's going to vary. So Harry gets the 2 and Voldemort there only gets the 1. So let's talk about the basic actions here. You're going to be using these again to try to succeed and get the victory outlined by the scenario. But these are always the actions that you're going to be able to do. So first of all, you can move. And when you move, you can move up to 2 squares. Very, very simple. When you challenge, typically you've got to be adjacent. So if Voldemort was here fighting this gal here, he can do a challenge. And most challenges are simply rolling 2 dice and looking at the number of success symbols here, these little bursts. Now you also have defense symbols. So let's say she's got a defense of 2. She also will roll 2 dice in regards to that challenge. So if you're on the offensive, you're looking for these bursts. If you're on the defensive, you're looking for these little shield icons here. Now we've also got these little 3 exclamation points, and these count as either 3 successes for offense or 3 successes for defense as well. Now if the attacker in this case gets more successes than the defender, then the defender will be knocked down. If again a challenge is made while this defender is knocked down and the attacker wins, then this gal here will go off the board for a round, and then she'll come back into the starting area. And again, the starting areas are defined by the scenario there like this. However, if your friend is down, let's say this gal's friend here was down, for an action she can assist and stand her up for her action. Now on your turn you get 2 actions, but if you're knocked down you got to use both of your actions to stand up. So theoretically Voldemort could move and then do a challenge and then maybe knock her down, but when it becomes her turn she's got to use both actions to stand up. So it does behoove your friendly players to use one of their actions to stand you up to be a little bit more efficient. Now sometimes you might have these point tokens here on the board and you want to be able to interact with them, and they'll help you score victory points. Or there might be other scenario-based things on the board that will vary based on scenario, and you want to interact with them and do whatever the scenario tells you to do. But that's all your basic actions. So it's either move, challenge, rally, which is to stand up and use both your actions, or assist to stand up your friend, or then again to interact with some icon on the board. Now the other thing you can do with your special characters is do one of these actions here. You can see these have a cost. So let's look at this Flipendo here. And this says challenge 3 to all adjacent rivals, then you may move each 1 target square. Well, remember a basic challenge is 2 dice. If it says challenge 3 or even challenge 6 sometimes I've seen, you're going to roll that many dice instead of 2. So it's a beefed up challenge. And then of course you do the other thing where you can kind of push them away. So the cost here is a yellow 4. What does that mean? Well, that means I need to have a yellow token in my pool. And since this particular action costs 4, I'm going to put that in the 4 slot on this little cooldown board. Now each team is going to have their own cooldown board. And so sometimes you might interact with a victory point token, and that's going to have you put it up at the 4, or you spend another ability. Maybe this one only costs you 2 and it's a blue. And then at the end of the round, everything is going to move down 1 slot on here. So after a while, these tokens will come back to you, and then you can activate those actions again. And then these victory point tokens are going to come down and come off the board, and you'll flip them over to the point side and then put them in the location indicated by the scenario card, wherever location C is, and these will come back out to be able to get farmed again for points. And then remember, when a character gets knocked out, they're going to be put here on the one slot, and then at the end of the round they're going to come off the board and then go back out to wherever the starting area is. That's pretty much the rules of the game. As far as like line of sight and moving around and squeezing between obstacles, the rules give you plenty of examples here of what is and isn't a legal line of sight and a legal move. But other than that, it's really just kind of mix and match things to your heart's content. The game does kind of recommend having sort of 3 characters per side. And sometimes with the base game, you're just going to get the 2 Harry Potter figures on each side, and then again these sort of non-cool characters. But then if you get another set, like you could splash in Rose and Blanche and mix them with the Harry Potter team. Maybe you've got some scenario where Rose and Blanche have summoned the characters out of Harry Potter to their condominium to finally, they've had too many arguments around the kitchen table, and now they're going to settle it by summoning the folks from Harry Potter. So that's kind of the gist of the game there. Okay, so that is the Funkoverse strategy game. Let's walk through my 3 pillars of reviewing. First, let's talk about player count. I've only ever played it 2 and 4 players, so the rules kind of say that's really the only player count, although I think you could theoretically play it with 6. So if you're playing with more than 2, each player controls, 1 character, or you kind of just collectively sort of decide what to do. That's been my experience with 4 players. It was like, well, you activate Voldemort and then do this, and then, okay, that'll leave me this token, and then when I activate my character on my turn, then, we'll do that. So it's definitely a sort of a cooperative experience within the team of figuring out what the best thing to do is. And I don't know. As far as the best player count, I like them both, because you're playing it 1 versus 1, you kind of control everything, and it's kind of fun to juggle all the different abilities and stuff, but it's also fun to commiserate as well, and it just add more banter to the table, because it's very much kind of a party atmosphere with this game, which I'll talk about in a minute. But because of the theme and sort of smashing weird stuff together that theoretically it isn't supposed to go together, then that makes it fun. So it's more fun to have more people at the table too, than just having one other player. You can't really, I don't know, there's something about like joking around that's better with more people. Maybe that's just me. In terms of the play time, it's about a half an hour to play through a game, play through a scenario of it. It doesn't seem to go much higher or lower than that. You've got a victory point threshold depending on the number of characters involved. I think it's like 6. If there's 2 characters on a side, and if there's 3 characters on a side, it goes up to 10. So I think if you played with more than 3 characters per side, it's probably too crowded. This is too much going on. It would just kind of be like a random scrum fest in the middle of the board. So I think 3 characters is perfect. And then you played at like 10 points, and then that's it. So it's got kind of a built-in timer, if you will, to the game. Now, as far as like what is this game like? Well, before I get into that, I want to say this has been probably the biggest surprise to me to come out of Gen Con. There was stuff that I went there and I played that I never heard of, and I was like, oh, that's a surprise, because it's brand new. This I kind of heard of going into it before, and I was like, okay, Funkoverse, Golden Girls, okay. Harry Potter, Batman, smashing all these different themes together, that's interesting. And then I was like, well, it's a Funko game, so it's probably phoned in, my sort of pessimistic, curmudgeonly side starts to creep up into my brain. But then I had a chance to play it, and I was like, holy cow, this is interesting. It's got some different stuff. So what I want to compare it to, well, you could sort of lean in to kind of compare it to any kind of miniature skirmish game. Obviously, like a Warhammer and Necromunda, this isn't even in the same ballpark. This is very much designed to be a family game, play with kids, and I really honestly wish I had small kids. My youngest is 18, and he's not really around, but he's around, but he's not really around to play games that much, and he's not really something that he'd be into. But if I had like an 8-year-old or 12-year-old, kind of in that ballpark or something like that, this would be something that would be really cool. I remember when my oldest son was really into Harry Potter, he would have friggin' loved this game. Harry Potter versus Batman, he would have been, holy cow, that sounds awesome. So if you got kids around that age, and they're going to be coming out with expansions and things. You know, to find an expansion that your kid just really likes because they like the TV show or whatever, they kind of identify with the character, then bam, you get that, and you have, you know, throw them against Batman or whatever you want to do. So I think that's a really cool aspect of it. I think that honestly kind of sets it apart from many games. So it kind of reminds me of like HeroScape, which, when did that come out? That was like in the early 2000s, where you took like time traveling CIA agents against dinosaurs, against medieval knights and aliens and all that kind of stuff, and smash it together. This is that same kind of vibe where you have people that really are very different, just different universes, you know, smashed together playing. That's neat. It does remind me of a new game that came out just at Gen Con 2 called Unmatched, where they take like Bruce Lee and Bigfoot and other stuff like that and smash that together. I definitely prefer this game a lot more than that game. That one I had more expectations going into Gen Con to appreciate, and my expectations were a little bit lower for this one. This one, to me, getting into kind of the meat of the review here, the mechanics are much crunchier in a way, but also they're still really straightforward and accessible and simple. Like I said, you can play this with kids. The rules do a good job of kind of walking you through and saying, okay, you move around and you do a challenge and you fight, and you can just kind of ignore all these extra abilities and just kind of fun pushing these cute little miniatures around, you know, in terms of kids. And then if you're an adult or something, or a smart kid, then, you know, you can then jump into all the different special abilities and all that kind of stuff. And there's really kind of a lot that you can do to mix and match and have fun with it. And that's really, I think, where the replayability and just a lot of these really cool moments are going to kind of come out of it. And whether you're playing with other adults who are just kind of, you know, playing it for the fun aspect of it, almost like as a filler skirmish game kind of thing, or, you know, you're playing it with younger kids that are going to get a really big kick out of it. Like I said before, I really wish I had young kids, because they would get a giant kick out of Blanche and Rose, you know, duking it out with Rick and Morty or Batman and Batgirl or whatever, or maybe Blanche and Batgirl are on a team and Batman and Rose are on a team, and that would be really fun too. And then when you smash those characters together and you get those different colored tokens that each of them kind of bring to the table to activate their special abilities, you can play around with kind of synergizing all of those tokens and keeping them all the kind of the same color. So it's like, oh, Blanche has a bunch of yellow, and Batgirl or Robin maybe from the expansion has a bunch of yellow, so let's put those three together, and then we can always be kind of activating our stuff. But those different colored tokens kind of line up with different sorts of abilities. Some will be sort of like manipulative, you know, like stealing items, moving stuff around, messing with the other players' cooldown board, and some will be, you know, more like attacky abilities. So if you just have a bunch of one type of ability, maybe you're giving up some of your versatility and stuff like that as well. So that's kind of an interesting kind of like little army building, deck building type of thing. Very, very light, where the rules are basically like take two characters or three characters, and that's it. And then that's kind of your army points or whatever you're trying to build. Your combo is like, well, you take three characters, I take three characters. Very simple. The end. You don't have to, like, you know, stress about really the balance of things. And then it also says you should give one character of yours an item, but it isn't really. It says, you know, give the dagger to Rose, give the cheesecake to Voldemort, you know, and then, you know, that's it. So you got one character with an item. And then the way that they kind of interact is cool. So like Voldemort's dagger in particular, when you use it, you spend it, and then it goes on the cooldown track and then kind of comes down off it. So that cooldown track is really just a cool idea of, you know, I've got this really big ability, but it's going to be 4 turns before I can use it. Or I've got this item, but if I use it now, it's going to be a couple of turns before I can get to it. So it kind of is just, it's interesting because it's a very like elegant, simple design, and it bakes in sort of a balance to the big, cool abilities. Is, yeah, you can use it, but you got to wait for it again. And then while you're waiting for it, this character that was really so cool, they kind of come back down to earth and just kind of like a normal person. So that's kind of an interesting concept. But yeah, so I think this game is going to have a lot of crossover appeal, and the Funkos and stuff they're well made, and like, I'm not into Funko stuff, but they're well made and they're cute and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to have some accessibility, I think, for folks, and especially for kids. And I really like the idea of, like, I'm kind of a Golden Girls fan. My grandmother used to babysit me when I was a kid, and then she loved the show, and then I loved it through her because it's a damn funny show, and I love Blanche and Rose, and I love that they made Blanche and Rose. But I think it would be cool if they made Sophia, and I can't remember the other gal's name, the really tall gal. And Sophia was just a firecracker on the show, and because those gals on that show have such like very dynamic personalities, I like that they've thrown them in here, like just with Batman. Like one of the actions they can do is flirt, like Blanche will flirt and like distract the thing, and that's just hilarious. I mean, and so that whole like combination of stuff just really just gives you opportunity to just sit down and have like a riot, silly good time. But then you're like, at the same time, I'm like, well, I should move him here and do this, and then have her block this area off. And then, okay, do I spend my action to assist, or should I trigger this victory point spot? What do you do? So there's all that kind of spatial miniature stuff that's keeping you interested. But then you have this ridiculous, you take a step back from all those mechanics, and you're like, what's happening here? Like, where am I? What's the story? What are we telling here? And it's very easy to slip into just, just kind of riffing and writing some kind of like off the cuff random fan fiction for why this is happening. And, it's just super fun. I hate that I call it fan fiction, but you kind of get what I'm saying there with this random assortment of things. So I definitely recommend the game. It's got good, solid, crunchy mechanics. It's a lightweight game. I don't want to oversell crunchy, but it's got stuff to chew on while you set up this kind of dynamic environment. And I think hopefully if the game does decent and they can release some expansions, folks can kind of plug and play what they wish to have at it. Because I would say get it. I mean, if you have some kind of interest in some kind of weird mashup, get a couple of the boxes and then you're good to go. And then and then you can play and have a good time, especially if you've got kids and stuff and a good family environment. This is going to be a ride, I think. So definitely take a look at the Funkoverse strategy game.